I knew that it's just kicking the can down the road. It's not healing anything. You're not addressing the root cause at all. You're band-aiding the solution. And in the end, my clients that come to me with TSW, like those symptoms are tenfold more intense, the eczema symptoms, because you've been suppressing receptors and detox. Because like what's happening with eczema is like the things they're detoxing through the skin.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Lee Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. Welcome to the latest episode of the Radical Health Rebel podcast, where I sit down with Andra McHugh, a mother of 4 who turned her family's eczema nightmare into a mission for healthier, happier children. Andra knows the struggle of dealing with eczema firsthand only too well, and frustrated by conventional allopathic medicine, Andra took matters into her own hands and found solutions that not only healed her children's eczema, but transformed their lives. Through meticulous research and real-world experimentation, Andra has cracked the code on eczema and is now sharing her groundbreaking approach with the world. Stay tuned as we discuss natural, actionable solutions that empower parents to reclaim their children's health with Andra's knowledge of diet, nutrition, environmental toxins, simple at-home remedies, and time-saving hacks for even the busiest of families. Andra McHugh, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Lee. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming back for a second time, just for the listeners. We did record this a few weeks ago, and the platform I was using at the time wasn't playing ball, so I've had to get a different platform, and we're going for take 2, which
take 2. It's going to be better.
Yeah, it's going to be even better than the first one. So let's dive straight in. So, Andra, to kick things off, could you share with the audience, your story and how you became so interested in eczema, and how that led you to helping parents with children suffering from eczema?
Yeah, my name is Andra McHugh. I host the Eczema Kids podcast, and I'm founder of the Eczema Kids brand. And we're just one of those classic, make your mess your message families. We found ourselves in a place where 2 of my 3 daughters, and one of them was a newborn, were suffering from severe, like incessant, all night, itchy, fiery red eczema. And excuse me, we were healthy people, like it was strange. We were active, we ate vegetables, and we were put in this position, it's seemingly overnight, where I wasn't sleeping and my kids were miserable, and I had to do something. I took them to the pediatrician, as one does when you have sick kids, and they said, "Oh, this is horrible." I said, "Yeah, well, I'm aware. That's why I'm here." And they said, "Well, you're going to have to use 2 prescriptions, like both of these prescriptions for steroids, put gloves on yourself because admittedly they're very toxic, and also do bleach baths with all of your kids. You can go ahead and throw your other one who doesn't have eczema in there because it's fine." And I was holding my 2-month-old baby at the time and looking at my 2-year-old, and I just thought, this is unacceptable. Like, I cannot go down this path with them. And even though we are in this dire state, like, I have to find another way. And I did. And now I just know it's my moral obligation to help families do the same, because there's unfortunately a lot of people in the same boat, and it's really sad. But the good news is that you can holistically heal and move on from this.
So how many of your children had eczema? Did you say 3, was it?
2. I had 3 at the time, and now I have 4. So now they're 2 and 4 and 7 and 9. So we have a full house, and that is why I'm coming to you from my car today. But they, everyone has very clear, soft, beautiful skin.
So how old was the first child that had eczema? How old was the first one when you noticed they had eczema?
She was 2, and it came on, like I said, it's just so quickly. It was so weird. I was working full time in a dental office, actually, at one of the biggest hospitals here in Denver, Colorado, in their dental ward, and I was, I know I was exposed to a lot of things, a lot of radiation, a lot of chemicals, a lot of things like that, and I was unfortunately working in that environment while I was pregnant with my third. But my 2-year-old, it was so weird. She was with a nanny, and during the day while I was working, and like the first little bit looked like ringworm, and I thought, her nanny at the time had ringworm, so I just thought this is clearly what it is, and I put an antifungal on it, and then it just expanded and it just took over her entire body. Like I said, like just like you would catch a cold, it happened so quickly. And I mean, it was just beyond strange, and then it quickly became something that we had to really contend with.
And you say another one of your children was born with eczema, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my third daughter was, when they gave her to me from the hospital when she was born, they said, "Oh, she's got a neonatal rash," and then it just got worse and worse and worse. She just got flakier and flakier and flakier. And newborns, like, have that little bit, they're red and they're a little bit flaky to begin with, but it just compounded every day, got worse and worse and worse, and no matter what I did. And so, and then there I was, like 2 kids that could not sleep, and so I couldn't sleep. So I just spent those hours in between wakings researching and reading. Like 27,000 books from written by very smart people, and came up with a diet and a plan that actually helped relieve their symptoms.
And so at one point you had 3 children, two of them with eczema, but one of them didn't have eczema.
But she had celiacs, and I didn't
Right
at the time. So I was 3 for 3 on autoimmune conditions in my kids. Is very troubling and unacceptable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was going to say to you, was there any difference in the one that didn't have eczema in terms of, were they born differently? Like, was it different birth, or fed differently, or anything like that?
I'm sorry. No, unfortunately, I've had 4 cesareans. Once you go down that road, it's really hard. My first was breech, and that's like what put me on that path. And knowing now what I know, I would have fought so much harder and found different care, and all the things. So we wouldn't have been on that path. But so I attribute that a lot to her celiac. It's just or her autoimmune condition in general, and she's also thriving and can even handle gluten now. But we had to buckle down, and we had to reevaluate and kind of just put a Control-Alt-Delete on everything that we were doing.
Yeah, I just find it really interesting that you got 3 children in the same environment, but yet their conditions, if you like, were different, but perhaps the causes were the same, but the expression of it was different in the second one that had celiac rather than eczema. I just find that really interesting, and I guess it would be great if we could work out why that is, that why 2 kids got eczema whilst one got celiac disease.
Well, I believe it's just, it's like, obviously inflammation is at the core of all of these conditions, of any autoimmune condition. And I'm sure you've read the GAPS diet by Dr. Natasha Campbell.
Yeah.
When I read that book, it really opened my eyes to actually the severity of eczema, and how serious it really is, because she puts it on the same scale as like autism. And it basically, with this inflammation at the core and just a lack of gut, microbiome diversity, and a dysbiosis, it just presents in different ways. And that inflammation in some kids, it's in the brain and through the gut brain axis. Of course, it moves back and forth. And then kids with eczema have like behavioral issues a lot of times, and a lot of times kids with autism also have extreme cases of eczema because of the gut brain axis. But the point is, it's just, it's this lack of beneficial gut flora. It's these inflammatory assaults that are coming in at all times, that are ever present for our kids. They're testing placentas and all the things, and kids are just born with these, they're exposed with these inherited exposures, essentially. And there's no way that you can avoid all of the, assaults, inflammatory assaults as a pregnant person. And then I did an extra poor job while I was working in my dental capacity. So I explained it that way. It's just like some people's Achilles heel just show up in different ways, but it's all as the same source. So to me, it makes sense.
Yeah. And talking about toxic exposure is quite interesting. I can see over your shoulder out of your car window a very thick chemtrail as well, which, I looked out at my own sky this morning when I woke up, and there wasn't anything in the sky. It was pale blue. And then I did a little meditation, had something to eat, and as I was walking to the gym, the sky was just full of crisscrosses, just absolutely full. And then it's been cloudy the rest of the day.
Yep.
And we have, we've got no choice. We have to breathe that in, right? How can you avoid the air?
Yeah.
It's just not possible. So, you're right in what you're saying. You can do the best you can, but you can't completely avoid all the toxins that we have in our environment.
Right. So, do what you can. And that's a lot of what, my course and message is about. It's just like, of course, you can't control other people, and you can't control all the toxins that come your way, but you can control what you bring into your house, and you can control what you're buying at the grocery store, and you can control what is happening within the four walls of your home. And that is enough. That can make a really big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we go any further, I think it'd be really good if perhaps you could explain actually what eczema is, and perhaps even your understanding of what causes it. Imagine being able to finally say goodbye to the constant itchiness, discomfort, and embarrassment of eczema. Meet Lissa, a 25-year-old accounts manager who struggled with her lifelong eczema until she found a solution that changed her life. Lissa reached out to me feeling skeptical after countless failed attempts to find relief. But with a personalised diet and lifestyle plan tailored to her individual needs, we were able to identify and treat an underlying fungal infection that had been exacerbating her eczema. Lissa's eczema not only cleared up, but she also unexpectedly experienced relief from headaches and a dramatic improvement in her asthma. And as her skin healed, so did her confidence, leading to a newfound sense of self-assurance and empowerment. If you're tired of feeling uncomfortable in your own skin and want to experience the same life-changing results as Lissa, take the next step towards clear, healthy skin. Schedule a consultation with me today at www.bodycheck.co.uk/consultation and take the first step towards a happier, healthier you. Don't let eczema control your life any longer. Take charge of your health and unlock the confidence and freedom you deserve. Your journey to great skin starts now.
Yeah, so if you were to Google eczema or go to the pediatrician, they'd say it's an inflammatory skin condition. And while it presents that way, just as we were speaking of earlier, it's obviously a much deeper problem. And then people have a hard time dealing with it because they're treating it as just a surface level skin condition. And what's happening in the case of eczema and a lot of autoimmune conditions is there's a dysbiosis happening. There's a lack of diversity in the gut. There's liver stagnation happening. There's a lot of there's detoxification issues. There's lymph stagnation. And then, in our case, we had to completely reboot their digestive capacity. Like kids are born with a very limited digestive capacity, they're only supposed to have breast milk and then they move on from there. But they were all really, really struggling with digestion. So that whole process was messed up. So
looking back, why do you think that your children were struggling with their digestion initially?
It's same thing as just, their inflammation buckets were over full. They
Mm,
were they were overflowing and their internal systems couldn't handle it. And so we had to, looking back at that time in my life or just and even like growing up, I ate like as a child of the 80s, like I ate pretty much only processed foods, right? Like
mm,
I ate a lot of macaroni and cheese and
mm,
chicken nuggets and soda and, looking back, like my parents are like, well, it was just convenient and it was new for them. And it's
mm,
just, yeah, this is just what you do. And kids still eat like that today. I didn't give quite as many processed foods to my kids and we were healthy, but we ate processed foods. We still eat
mm,
like canned soup and
mm,
stuff like that. And, there's just, we were just really detached from that like seasonal whole real food way of eating that our bodies require to
mm.
have functioning digestive systems.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think an important thing to point out at this point as well, and I'm sure you're kind of, level-headed with this situation, but, I think it's really important for parents not to feel guilty, right? Because, all parents are doing their best, right? All parents, pretty much. I think it's fair to say almost every parent is, they're doing their absolute best. And I think it's important, if someone is a parent and they've got a child with eczema, is not to blame themselves, right? Because they're always doing the best they can. And I'm sure you've kind of been through that process, right?
Yeah, and I still deal with it, of course. It's just like, oh my goodness, this is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch. And now that we're on the other side of it, I can breathe easier. But yeah, it doesn't do any good to wallow, and it do
Mm,
any good to say coulda, shoulda, woulda. But that's the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is because when you know better, you can do better.
mm,
So there's things that you need to change and you can make those changes. And then that will change the trajectory of your kids' lives. And
mm.
so that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a mouthful of mercury amalgam fillings. And, I know there's a part of my mum that kind of feels a bit guilty that she let that happen. But at the end of the day, that's what dentists were doing. They weren't offering, oh, by the way, mercury is one of the most poisonous substances in the world. But when we put it in your child's mouth, it becomes completely safe. Right? Right?
Yep.
Um, so, I certainly, I've got no blame when it comes to my mother. She was doing the best she could. I had a cavity in my tooth. It needs to be filled. Right.
Yep.
I mean, it cost me thousands and thousands of pounds to get those replaced, probably a 5-figure sum. But,
Hmm.
I've got no negative thoughts about that. I was in that situation and my decision was, right, I need to get this stuff out of my body and I need to detoxify myself.
Yep.
There was no blame attached, right? Not
Right.
even not even to the dentist, because the dentist didn't know any better either, right? Because that's how they were, I was going to say trained, but indoctrinated, really.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I still know the taste of that like pink antibiotic that was like liquid,
Mm,
because I had it all the time as a kid. And they didn't know any better. Like my mom had no idea. And it's really hard to say no thank you to somebody wearing a white coat. Like
mm,
on my journey, that was extremely hard. By the time I had my fourth, and I was, nobody in the I'm sorry. I apologize.
mm,
No one in the natural world, like in the home birth or birthing center world, would touch me, right? Because I had already had 3 cesareans. So I had to go the hospital route. So I
mm,
found the most like agreeable doctor I could. But like to do things like swabbing and things like that, that really, really do make a difference if you're going to
mm,
have a cesarean birth. It was really frowned upon. I had to really fight. And I had to really fight after there's no way to have a cesarean without being loaded up on so many drugs. And, even after that point, and then I had lost a lot of blood, like still had to really fight to be like, stop putting more drugs into my body because that's going directly to my baby.
mm,
You do have to put on your brave face and you have to stand in the I never went back to that pediatrician once I had that conversation that I told you about earlier, because that was like horrifying, and I knew we weren't aligned, and like that's just not how I was going to move forward. But it's a hard thing to do. You have to advocate for your kids, but they'll look at you, you don't have an MD, and they'll look at you like you're crazy, and they'll say things that make you doubt yourself. And you just have to stay strong in that inner knowing as a parent, as a mom, as a parent, that you're doing the right thing for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned was swabbing. So can you explain, I suppose, especially for women that might be listening to this that are pregnant right now, what swabbing is and what the benefits are of doing swabbing?
Yeah, in a traditional vaginal birth, they're going through the birth canal, and that's on purpose. Like, it was designed like that because the baby's mouth is open, and then they're just exposed to all of those microbes coming out of the chute. And you need the microbes are driving the show. And as we said earlier, it's like the entire reason that these issues are presenting is this lack of diversity and a dysbiosis happening with those microbes. And so they have to be exposed to that coming out, because otherwise they're born without them. And in the case of cesareans, if you do the swabbing, it's, you're swabbing from your vaginal canal and putting it into their mouth post-birth. So they're getting a little bit of exposure. So it sounds gross. And like I said, it sounds crazy even to medical professionals. But if you're going to have a cesarean or anything less than a vaginal birth, like, you really need to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of the things that I've tended to see, because you've mentioned the gut microbiome a few times, and what I've tended to see in clients, and I've done a stool test, the one bacteria that's probably spoken about the most is Staphylococcus aureus, that's kind of related to eczema. And yet, yes, I've seen that. There's a fungus called Malassezia restrictor. I've seen that quite a bit. And also Candida as well, I see quite often in people with eczema. And when you look back at, okay, what could potentially cause a dysbiosis? Well, then it could be cesarean birth, it could be a baby's bottle fed, it could be someone's grown up in a very an environment that hasn't got a lot of bacteria, right? Very sterile environment, that's the word I was thinking of, sterile. A household that doesn't have pets, for instance. Whereas if it was an ideal situation, it would be a natural birth, the child would be breastfed, probably have pets around the home, probably even better living on a farm with loads of animals.
Yeah, in your own garden, yes.
So that, because that's kind of, if you think about it, that's how we evolved, right? Living in nature, right? So the more sterile we make the situation, the less optimum our own microbiome is going to be. And then you think, well, what is eczema? Well, it's a condition that's where the immune system is not functioning properly. Well, what's a major part of our immune system? It's our gut microbiome, right? So when you look at it in that respect, actually, it's quite simple.
Yeah.
But obviously, living in the modern world, simple is not always easy.
No, it's really hard. You got to advocate, and you have to work a little bit harder. And in some cases, the food is a little bit more expensive in the short term, and that's okay. I mean, and once you get a rhythm and you adopt this style of cooking, like, I don't think it does need to be more expensive. I think it can actually start to save you money. But, I'm in Denver, like, as I mentioned, and that's a very big city, and we're doing okay. Like, you can do it. You can do it. We moved a whole bunch of times these past few years. Like, we don't have a flourishing backyard garden. Like, thankfully, like, we're not special, right? We're not living off the grid out, in the mountains. Like, you can do this. You just have to get the right things in place and work a little harder. And like you said, align with nature. Like, and you can do that with seasonal eating. That's a big part of it. That's inoculating your gut with the correct microbiome or the correct microbes for the correct season. Like, that's a big part. Cooking your food correctly, like soaking, sprouting if you can, you don't even have to, just soaking, using pressure cookers, like lowering the lectins, anti-nutrients, things like that. there's just so much you can do. And then also like be outside, like prioritize that. Like, I just think a lot of our kids are under illuminated the same way that you can be malnourished and dehydrated. They aren't getting the sunlight that they need. And one, that's a vitamin D disruptor, and you need that for holistic health, certainly, and definitely skin health, and also just for circadian rhythm, right? And just to get the correct sleep, to get the restorative sleep that you need every night to be a healthy, happy human. So there's, again, simple solutions that you do, like you just getting back to what people knew thousands of years ago, like this is the way you live.
Yeah.
And we've just, removed ourselves a little bit too far from that.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting if you look at the way that, our schooling system works with children, it's almost like you're depriving them of all of those things.
Yeah. That's a big, I sigh because I have 4 kids. So I used to send my oldest to a private school, and we had to drive there. And then after this whole eczema disruption happened, I then fueled the school, just their classroom, with, I had to talk to the county health commissioner and all the things that like licensed the school to get something that wasn't bleached to clean the school. And it was just their classroom during the day, because they were in preschool, and then they were spraying, the levels of clean, right? And this is, part of my like OSHA dental background as well. It's just like, there's clean, and then disinfecting, and then sanitize. And you can't sanitize, without an autoclave or anything like that. So like once, you're here, when you're doing with like preschool and daycare and school settings. And so there's all these, requisites that they have to meet to maintain their licensure. So I get that 100%. And then the cheapest, easiest way to maintain that is bleach. Like my school said their cleaning budget was literally $15 a year, because they're just buying massive amounts of bleach and then watering it down. And then you have to use it on the tables, throughout the day at every interval, after every activity, and on the nap mats and all the things. And I just said, okay, at least if you could just not, an overnight, like I couldn't fight that fight, but just during the day in their classroom, could you use this? And I found a cleaner that was approved that kills the SARS virus, the COVID. Like this was also just right after COVID. So everyone was touting like how often they were cleaning with bleach and how clean and sterile everything is. And, and then I also sent them to school with their own soap that wasn't antimicrobial soap, because just tears anyone's hands, but especially somebody with a lackluster skin barrier, it's just not gonna really work out. And then of course that's being absorbed into your bloodstream as well. So yes, it's extremely hard, but you can, like I said, you still can change the environment for your kids, even in those school settings. And my 4-year-old goes to part-time preschool right now. I'm homeschooling the others. Not because of this, the toxin exposures, like literally it just worked out that, we had to move and all the things. And now I really love it. And I highly recommend it for anyone that's about it. It's amazing. But you can still be present in those situations. But yeah, my little one in the half day preschool, and she was that newborn that was born with eczema. She's my most sensitive kid. She has her own soap there. She uses it, and she's doing fine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I find a lot of people tend to not want to rock the boat, right? They don't want to stand up for themselves, or even in your case, don't want to stand up for their children. And they think, I don't want to cause a fuss. But, how important are your children for you, or to you? You've got to stand up for these things. I think it's probably a bit more of a British thing as well. I think we tend not to want to rock the boat. I mean, that's not me. I'm, radical health rebel. I'm the complete opposite, right? But yeah, it's really important to stand up for yourself and to stand up for your kids.
Well, it's hard to do. Yeah, like you said, it's so hard to stand up to somebody wearing a white coat and say, no, thank you to whatever you're suggesting. And the same thing with like emailing the county health commissioner and like the administrator of school. None of that feels good. Like that's horrible. It takes a lot of time and it's annoying. And then, yeah, you have this red flag, right? In your file. It's like, oh, you're a pain. And, I have to wear that badge. I don't like to wear that badge. Like you said, it's necessary.
Mm. So just going back to, when your children first, started getting eczema, you took them to medical doctor, dermatologist or whatever. What kind of solutions or, medicines did they offer you?
They gave us 2 separate steroid prescriptions and I held on to them. A lot of my clients come to me after having tried steroids and either they didn't work or they just don't want to be on them forever. But that's really the option, and like you could go to the dermatologist and they'll say the same thing. And that's it. Like it's just really suppress and kill. Like that's what the bleach bath is for the staph on the skin, because people with eczema does have more staph on their skin. And that's really the only options in the allopathic world. And like I said, I just knew that wasn't going to work for us. I knew that it's just kicking the can down the road. It's not healing anything. You're not addressing the root cause at all. You're band-aiding the solution. And in the end, my clients that come to me with TSW, like those symptoms are tenfold more intense, the eczema symptoms, because you've been suppressing those receptors and the detox. Because like what's happening with eczema is like the things they're detoxing through the skin. So you have to detox, right, from all the exposures and all the things, but they're not going through the normal channels. And that's like the part that's broken, and that's what you're seeing in those red rashes. So
did you use any of the steroids at all on your children, or did you just say no right from the beginning?
I kept them. I kept those sheets of paper because we were in a bad way, but I didn't cash them in. So to say, I just didn't. I don't know. I really knew. I think it was because I had stopped taking birth control in my 20s, just because I wanted to be pharmaceutical free and I wanted to be healthier. And then from that, and I know you dealt with this, like then I got adult acne, and that was horrible, and it had never been an issue for me before, but it was totally from taking these drugs and then stopping those drugs. And then I was presented with a new problem, and the solution for that was more drugs, like in the forms of creams and antibiotics. And so I had already been down that path, and I think that's what fueled my resolve for like, I know this isn't going to work.
Yeah, you mentioned TSW, so that's topical steroid withdrawal, right? So again, for people listening, the most common medicine or treatment given for eczema is a topical steroid cream. Sometimes oral as well, right? Sometimes. I had eczema for about 18 months, around the age of 19, 20. And I remember I was given something called Betnovate, which was a topical steroid. But I was also given this kind of creamy stuff, but it was made from petroleum. How could that possibly be a good idea? And so like I would rub this stuff on my skin, and my skin would just be like sticky and greasy and horrible. And luckily for me, my eczema just went away. I don't really know why it went away, but it did. But what's also quite interesting, just a couple of days ago, I watched a movie called Preventable. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, so Preventable is basically like a docu-movie about topical steroid withdrawal. It's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a very interesting watch, but it's a hard watch as well. It's very difficult to watch. It's very upsetting. It's very emotional. And it's really sad that, that is still the treatment that's offered straight off the bat, when we know the results are of it. And a lot of people with TSW are gaslit by their medical professionals to say, well, no, that's got, your condition's got nothing to do with topical steroid withdrawal.
Yeah.
And they say, well, what's the solution? And they're like, well, more steroids. So what?
Yes. And round we go. I know. I kind of shield myself from those type of documentaries because I've done the research and I know. And I like you said, it's a hard watch. I'm sure. Like it just I like can't. My mama heart is already just overloaded. And when I really go down that path and when I was doing all the research, it's just very anxiety provoking. And it does feel like, oh my goodness, every single thing that I've ever done is wrong. And there's no way out of this hole. And that's why I have created what I did. It's just like, okay, here are the things that you can do. Here's the things you can stop doing right now, today, no matter where you live, step by step by step. And you start where you are. There's no other option. So if you had already done steroids on your kid, then okay, that's okay. Just now we know better. Now we do better. If you're slathering with the Aquaphor, and that's like the go-to solution too, and that's just over the counter, and that's a petroleum-based product, like, okay, there's other solutions. Start now.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say that there is some light to the end of the movie. That the people that they follow through the documentary, they do start to get better, and some of the people you can see quite, from the beginning, they've actually already healed themselves, but they talk about their story. So it's not a case of there's no solution to the problem, which all about, which we're going to come and talk about. So with regards to diet, because obviously that plays a big role in the gut microbiome and inflammation, the immune system, etc. What should a diet look like for a child suffering from eczema? I'd like to introduce you to Jill. Jill was a holistic lifestyle coach and Pilates instructor who had been struggling with eczema for her entire life. Despite following a healthy diet and lifestyle, her eczema had spread all over her body, leaving her frustrated and self-conscious. After thorough testing, we discovered that Jill had a parasite infection, leaky gut syndrome, and toxic overload. With a customized diet plan and a protocol to heal her gut and balance her gut microbiome, Jill started to see incredible results. In just a short amount of time, Jill's skin cleared up and she experienced a newfound sense of confidence and self-esteem. Thanks to the support she received, Jill was more able to socialize, feel more confident in her work, and ultimately live a happier and healthier life. If you're struggling with eczema, don't wait any longer. Seek the help that you need and start living your best life today. Contact me today and see how I can help you on your journey to great skin, because everyone deserves to feel their best, just like Jill. If you'd like to transform your skin like Jill did, request a consultation with me at www.bodycheck.co.uk/consultation. Now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, what is really exciting is you can just make such a big difference in your kids' condition just by what you feed them, which is great. And especially with kids, right? You're feeding them all throughout the day and they're building, their tissues are building so quickly. Like that's what childhood is for. And they can bounce back really quickly too, which is what's so exciting about working with kids. So they need to eat whole, real food. First and foremost, it needs to be whole, it needs to be real, it needs to be digestible, I guess, is first and foremost. And that means, not like even you need to cook it. You need to cook it properly. You need to use like anti-inflammatory herbs and spices, not spicy spices, right? And we're talking about kids, but also just any inflammatory condition at all, like nothing that increases heat in the body. No yeast, because you talked about candida, how that shows up in kids, like anything that's made from yeast. And I don't think the diet is very strict. I think there's not a lot of room for processed foods. And that for us as a culture is a really big shift. And that's the part that's hard. But the bounty of fruits and vegetables and animal proteins and legumes and, gluten-free grains, like there's a ton that you can have. And ideally you're eating all that on a seasonal basis as well for diversity, to inoculate your microbiome. And also just to sink in with what's going on in the environment around you.
Yeah, I guess there's some pretty obvious ones that you want to avoid. Seed oils, the vegetable oils. Dairy is probably another one, isn't it? That tends to cause eczema to get a lot worse. Are there any what some people might consider healthy foods that you would suggest people probably need to avoid?
Yeah. So like you mentioned, like the gluten and dairy, and for our population, like eggs,
Mm,
that's a whole real food that doesn't serve people that are trying to heal from eczema.
mm,
And nuts as well. It's another one
mm,
that's just a big trigger for our population. So it's fermented foods. Those are really high in histamine.
mm,
And that's like step number one. Like that's what it's like recommended in any gut healing protocol. And bone broth, same.
mm,
Really, really high in histamine. And we still eat chicken soup, but you just eat it that same day. So there's things you can do. But then for that time being, when we were really focused on healing, like, and it's, you know, kombucha, right? For parents, like your kids are probably not drinking a ton, but you might be. And like those big bottles, like those are made from yeast, or any
mm,
wine, like that's not necessarily a health food, but like, any fermented or any fermented uh, liquids,
mm,
it's not gonna serve anything made from yeast. It's not gonna serve your eczema condition, or if you're nursing an eczema baby, like you're gonna have to eradicate those type of things out of your diet.
mm. Yeah, and I guess what you were saying about high histamine foods. You probably need to get to have a list of the high histamine foods close by until you actually know them all off the top of your head as well, because you probably want to avoid those, right?
Yeah, I mean, even things like black pepper, right? That's a really hard one, and this is like one of the main reasons that you have to cook from home. That, and like the seed oils that you're trying to avoid. That's high in histamine, and it's just like obviously peppers and everything, and you can switch it out for pink peppercorn, but like I said, it just takes some intention and some knowing,
Mm,
and yeah, like there's dried fruits, or anything like that is just really high in nitrates and just chemicals in general, and is also drying to the body. Any like popcorn, even homemade, like that's really drying to the body as well. So you want to
mm,
avoid those type of things when you're dealing with this like dry condition. So there's just nuances that you'd
mm,
want to to keep out for 90 days is what I suggest.
mm,
And you will be looking at, if you can buckle down, you will be looking at a completely different kid at the end of 90 days.
mm. How do you kind of look at the situation where, obviously when you're restricting foods, let's call it, that the child might start to become almost down the road of getting an eating disorder. How do you kind of juggle that situation?
Yeah. Like I can empathize with being afraid to feed your kid. Like I remember when mine were struggling so badly, and it was like, oh my goodness. And I was nursing my baby, and it's just like, I feel like everything, they're reacting to everything. They're so sensitive, and right, that's the issue, is just their white blood cells, and everything is going bananas on the
Mm,
inside. I Like I said, I don't think it's that limiting. There's so much real whole
mm,
foods that you can eat.
mm,
And if you're looking at it that way, that helps. If you have to cook at home, you have
mm,
to. Like that's the only way to do it. And then yeah, you have to eradicate those processed foods. And then dairy is like a hard one to give up for a lot of people, especially people with kids, because it's like you
mm,
do the milk and you do the cheese and you do the yogurt, but now we eat all those things. Dairy, like in the spring, nobody is served with eating a lot of dairy in the spring, because that's like, it's not a light clearing seasonal food. But that said, you make your own yogurt. It's very easy. There's just there's cheese substitutes, but not like the grocery store cheese substitute, because that's just nuts and soy and more
mm,
processed ingredients. So it's an adjustment. Like it is an adjustment. But it's not calorie restrictive. And there's still so much food. A lot of my clients have younger kids. Some of them are older and they go to school and they're with their friends more. And you know, that's something to contend with. But if they're older, you can play on their desire to look and feel better. You know, you can just say like, for the time being, you would be better off eating this over this. And you know, and just have a real conversation with them. And even with my 2-year-old you know, like my baby, fortunately, like she's so young, like she doesn't know. And I was the one that had to do this diet because I was nursing her. And I've never been so healthy, honestly. I mean, I wasn't sleeping, so that was an issue, but I looked good, which was cool. Like my digestion was great. It's just, you know, my 2-year-old though, like her wrists were burning, you know, she's just, even with her, I was like, okay, we're going to have these carob chips instead of chocolate chips because this will help your skin. And they taste a little different, but they still taste like chocolate. We still had desserts every night. My kids require it, and you can still give them sugar, just not excessive amounts of sugar. And if you make the things at home, or just there's some things that you can buy, but mostly if you can make it at home, and then they're fine. Like that sweet tooth part is satisfied. They really don't have to go without that much. It's just a reframe.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned, you know, really you've got to cook at home, and you said, you know, you've got to be on it for like 90 days. I guess there might be people listening to this, you know, they've got young kids, they've got eczema, and it's like, but what if we get invited to, you know, a wedding or a dinner, or, you know, those kind of, how do you kind of deal with those situations?
Which you do, thankfully. Like, that's great. And when they're young, I just would bring their own cupcake, you know, that I made, and they don't care. They just want to be a part of it. At my 4-year-old's preschool, you know, and there's birthdays like every other day, and I don't know, and they bring whatever to celebrate it. She just has a box of like the Yum Earth gummies and lollipops, and so it doesn't expire, and it still has sugar, but it just doesn't have the artificial dyes and all the things. So they give that to her, and she's fine. She's 4. My older ones, now they can handle it, but again, it's just a prior conversation. They have to assume the responsibility, and because they have to assume the consequences when they go out of bounds. So the goal is to have everything in moderation, and that's where we are now. My kids can have the pizza and they can have the cake. It's just not every day, just not all the time. Just, it's like, okay, if there's this one, you know, Saturday birthday party, great. Then that night we will have like just something more balanced, and the next day too. And you just have to kind of plan for that. But yes, do the weddings, do all the things. And if you're in those 90 days, if you're really in a bad way, then it is worth it to just plan ahead and bring something. Is it easier? No. Like, but you just adapt, and okay. I know like a family that they're going through it with a couple of their kids, and they're taking this nationwide road trip, and they're just packing their food, and they go to the grocery store, you know, and they have a cooler. Like, you totally can. And again, another way to think about it is like, sometimes, especially when my kids were much younger and my baby was struggling so badly, and then I'd see other people that, you know, didn't seem like they were trying at all. Right? You know, just ordered pizza at the pool every day and ate Chick-fil-A, and it was fine. And it felt a little unfair, you know, because I was working so hard and had to be so conscious. But when you look at it through a different lens, like, they were always dealing with other types of sicknesses and chronic ear infections. They're dealing with something. There's no way to get around addressing your diet. Like, we've gone too far from whole, real, digestible food, and all of our bodies are suffering the consequences, and you're going to have to address it at one time or another. And it just depends on when your circumstances get dire enough for you to want to incorporate those changes. And for your kids, I found it much easier to do things for my children that I wouldn't do for me. If I was just like wanting to lose a few pounds, I wouldn't have had the discipline that I did for my kids. But see them suffering and to not be sleeping like that couldn't be like the way that we were living. We could not sustain that. We had to, like I said, control, alt, delete. But it's so worth it, and you'll start to see the benefits right away. And that gives you the motivation to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you recommend is people changing their diet for 90 days. And I hate to use the term elimination diet because it sounds like you're going without. I don't like to use that term. So change the diet for 90 days.
Yeah. You're going without processed foods, really.
Yeah.
So not food, just go without the processed foods.
Yeah. So you do the 90 days. How do you do the reintroduction? Because obviously you can't just go back to exactly how you were before and everything's going to be rosy, right? How do you suggest people do the kind of reintroduction?
No, what's so cool is, when you're successful, you really adopt this, like, we're a healing family type of mentality. Like, you don't ostracize the person that's healing and say, oh, they can't have it. It's just like, and everybody, also for your own sanity and for time's sake, like, I can only make one meal. Like, I can only make one dinner, and then we eat that the next day for lunch. Like, that's, I have time constraints just like everyone else. So there's no short order chef cooking happening. And just once you do that, then you realize, like, you're changing. Everyone's changing. Your microbiome's changing. Everyone's changing. You enjoy the healthier foods more. Like, legitimately, my favorite food is Brussels sprouts. Like, I really do love them. And my kids eat vegetables, like, but it's an acquired taste. It's a progression. And especially if you don't start out that way. Babies, like, my baby ate, when she started eating solid food, I gave her only liver pate. She didn't know any better, right? Like, just to fill those nutritional gaps. She doesn't know. So we're made to eat whole, real foods, and that's what your body wants. But sugar is, like, hijacked our brain and our microbiome, and then it doesn't seem like that's what we want. But you do change, you do progress, and then you notice, like, okay, once they're doing well, like, once we got to a place of equilibrium, I just let that ride for like a month. I was not anxious to get back on the, like, oh goodness, are we going to have a flare train? I was like, once I finally, like, got it dialed in, it's like, okay, I needed to sleep. I needed to breathe. And so we just kept on. And then things like eggs, or things that, that we were missing, dairy, you just do one thing at a time. Just do one thing, just a little bit for a week, and see how they do. And if it's a little too soon, then no problem. Back up. But it doesn't have to be this, like, spreadsheet type of process, because nobody has time for that, especially people with young kids. It's just like, okay, you decide what's most important to you. And I suggest starting with those real whole foods that are healthy in a person's diet that has regular digestive function.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sensible, really. When you think how we evolved, eating real food. Why wouldn't that work? One of the things I was thinking as well as you were speaking then was, certainly when children get to a certain age, and let's say they want to eat, let's say it's pizza, could be anything, right? But that's a trigger for their eczema. Once they're at a certain age, you can say, look, you can have the pizza, but what happens when you eat pizza? And if they say, oh yeah, my skin flares up, and I say, okay, do you still want the pizza? And they go, yeah, I still want it. Okay, you have it.
Like,
right?
There's just nothing else you can do. Like, you can't. Yeah.
But they're probably going to learn, aren't they? Eventually. right? If it's something that's a real trigger for them, and as much as they might enjoy eating it, they're not going to enjoy the effects of it.
Yeah.
Right?
They know. And they have this inner knowing, and I feel like they're closer to that inner knowing because they've just had less time on this earth, so
Yeah.
they do know. And my oldest, she can eat the pizza. Like she does the birthday parties, but like oats is still just not something that she can tolerate, and it makes her throw up. And so she voluntarily doesn't eat things with oats and oat flour. There's like a lot of, processed gluten-free food that has oat flour. Like she knows, okay, well, that I don't like throwing up all night, so I'm going to avoid that.
Yeah, oats gives me arthritis.
Oh,
Quite
that's
interesting.
well, because your body reacts to it just like a gluten protein.
Yeah,
Bodies react.
yeah,
It's presented as this healthy alternative, but it's not. Yeah, even gluten-free oats, it's not really
yeah,
suiting. And then nobody's like soaking it and properly preparing it.
yeah,
So it
for sure.
causes an issue for a lot of people. And then like in the eczema community, that's like a huge recommendation is like oatmeal baths, right? It's like just soak them in oats. And I get it because it's got these like soothing, humectic type of properties, but it also is triggering.
Yeah, yeah. And how else can parents support their children that have eczema?
Yeah, then we go into symptom management, and we started with herbal oils. It's like it's a practice borrowed from Ayurveda, and it's like the oldest medical system in the world. And you infuse oils with these herbs that are lymph moving, that are anti-inflammatory, that are high in vitamin C. It's like taking supplements through the skin. I mean, it works in the same way that steroids do, right? It's like you put it topically and then it's absorbed into your bloodstream. But these are things that you actually want circulating through your body. So we do that, um, and then take ideally like a detox bath with just Epsom salts and baking soda and some ragweed free essential oils. But that goes a really far way. And if you have small children, you're bathing them anyway, and it's just throw it in the bath, and it's not a big deal, and let them soak. And it's a therapy. It's really, really healing them. And don't put any of the artificially dyed bath bombs or anything like that, or random scents. And people know that. Just avoid the phthalates and anything artificial, that, and like the artificially scented detergent, like that. I mean, that's usually like the first thing you start to learn when you have a kid with eczema. And then I sell a skin comfort trio that has this herbal oil. After the bath, then you put on an anti-itch, anti-staph spray, and that's got Chinese herbs and aloe and some peppermint to help cool. And it honestly does kill the staph and keep that under control. It's got some real medicine in there, but again, stuff that does work to circulate through your body. And that's really quick drying. And then you follow that up with a tallow cream. It's just bioavailable. It's really high in vitamins A, D, E, and K. And you can absorb it, and it actually does help rebuild that skin barrier. And again, it's not something that's adding more burden to your liver. So that goes a really far way, because you have to address the here and now, and you have to sleep. And wet wrapping, is a thing. If you're in a really bad way, that helped us get through the night a couple of nights, and that's fine. You put on that cream, put on that tallow cream, and then follow that up with just it sounds weird, but just wet pajamas, like wet, tight fitting cotton pajamas that have been wrung out, and then a dry layer, and let them sleep like that. But that just helps keep the skin moisturized. And then go into everything that you can do in your home. And that I found to be a really hard space to navigate, as a mere mortal parent, and not an EMF expert or anything like that. It's just like, or a water expert. Like, it takes a lot of research and a lot of time to find out the solutions that make sense and what to prioritize. But we go through all of that. But this is after dealing with the diet and dealing with the symptom management protocol. And then you add on the supplements, and these are all like kid friendly, actual in dosages that make sense without any of the junk because all kid supplements are, the potency is so small, and you'd have to take like 50 servings to actually make a dent. And then they always have all these extra ingredients. So we've really sorted out what makes sense, what you can combine, what you can actually administer to babies and small children to really turn the dial. And then if you've gone through all those 4 things step by step by step, like, and you're still seeing a little bit of a problem, like you won't be in the circumstances that you were at all at the beginning of these 90 days. But if you can do that and you're still seeing something, then we have a testing protocol that you can navigate yourself as a parent. Call these real labs. These aren't consumer labs. These are real doctor facing labs. Get the test yourself. Get a phlebotomist that can work with kids and then go through in a way that makes sense. And see if there's just an underlying, in that case, there is an underlying issue that you're missing. So there might be H. pylori or something like that. And then you can address that then and make the appropriate accommodations. But that's how we do it for this younger population. And it is very effective.
Yeah, you mentioned that you use oil with herbs. Is there a specific type of oil that you use?
Yeah, ours is jojoba oil because it's most like sebum. And, when olive oil is in a lot of natural products that you buy, but it's high in oleic acid, and in long-term use of that actually like thins out the skin. And we're obviously going for the opposite. Their skin barrier isn't functioning and we need to rebuild the skin barrier. So we use jojoba oil for that, and it absorbs quickly and is easy to put on. And then there's cold press, hexane-free castor oil in the tallow balm, because that's like just the thickest oil that you can possibly have and makes it just extra moisturizing and soothing on the skin.
Do you know, I was literally going to ask you, do you ever use castor oil? I was literally going to say that. Because obviously it has quite a lot of detoxification properties as well, castor oil. So castor oil packs is something that I often recommend, not just eczema, but any person, to be honest, particularly over the liver, to try and help detoxify the liver. Very interesting.
It's hard to put a castor oil pack on a 2-year-old,
Yes.
So,
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because you need to stay still, don't you?
So that's not part of our protocol, but I love that. And yeah, we're getting those like daily doses of castor oil, because I remember putting lotion on my kids and it's just gone while you're still putting it on, it's just gone in a second. Like their skin is in such a bad way.
Soaks it up.
Yeah. So you need just the most moisturizing things possible.
Yeah. Awesome. So this has been great so far, but question I've got for you is, what's next for you?
In terms of like professionally?
Anything. However you want to answer that question.
I just am going to keep on keeping on with this. I've been doing this for a couple of years and made the transition from dental, and that was definitely the right choice for myself and my family. And it's just so rewarding to work with people and to see these transformations, because it's just the hardest thing in the world to see your baby suffering. And it keeps me honest and keeps me keeping on with our personal things and the way that I feed my kids. But, I'll never go back to how we used to eat, because we feel better and we sleep. And so we'll just keep on. I'm loving homeschooling. It's just been so incredibly rewarding. And honestly, just going back to these basics is just in every capacity has been so rewarding. We're gonna just keep going.
Yeah, sounds great. And where can people find you online?
My website is eczemakids.com, and you can find the skincare, and we have a Clear Skin Kids course. It just takes you through step by step how to do all these things. Because like I said, the research alone is just enough to send you over the edge with anxiety. And we just limited that time span where you can actually see results and stop the suffering in your kid. And my podcast is the Eczema Kids podcast. So I recently joined Instagram. I'm like the last person to the 20-year-old party. I don't even know how long it's been over. I avoided it for so long, but I just joined it there. I'm at eczema.kids there. You can come check us out. But I'm just there serving, putting out content every week so that you can heal your kids.
Great stuff. Andra, thank you so much, for sharing your experience, with my audience today. And also thank you for putting up with our first attempt at recording this interview, which failed miserably due to the platform I was using at the time. But yeah, thanks again for your time.
My pleasure, Lee. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So that's all from Andra and me for this week. But don't forget to join me same time, same place next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.